Okay, in the last video we created a template page. We created a HTML and CSS layout with some funky colors for fun. We'll change those in a little bit. Let's check out our site folder, movies_site. Within there, Dreamweaver created a template folder with a movie template in there. Do not change or move that around. Do not duplicate that. Within our images folder, I still have my images. And with our CSS folder, we have our CSS file. All those together will give us this template page. We're on the live view. We're going to look at the code view in a second. But before we do that, let's see if we can preview this on the internet, on the web. We should be able to do this through File, Real-Time Preview. I'm going to look at Google Chrome. Okay. There we are. So there's our fixed layout. Now the background or the body is still white in the background. And you can see that 0 auto has centered that website in the middle of the browser window. Otherwise it'd be aligned left over here, a little lopsided. Okay. We have our header up here, navigation bar, aside, main section, and our footer. I'm going to minimize Chrome and go back to Dreamweaver. And let's look at the code side. That's live view here. Let's look at the code side. Source code, that's your HTML code. HTML head, there's that link to that CSS sheet. Our body, within the body is a container. Everything else is in the container. That's 0 auto centers that on the margins. Let's go to the header. We have the navigation bar or nav bar, the aside, the main section, content section, and the footer. Once again, here's that header section, ID header. That's the CSS where it links to the CSS. It comes up here. Link href css movies.css, which brings us to this movies.css code, that CSS document. There's my container with all the rules. Width, height, margin. Once again, 0 auto, 0 top and bottom, auto left and right. Header, notice the size in that. The background hexadecimal color. These are floating left, not the container, but the other ones, remember, are floating left. That's what will help them snap and push the next section down. Nav bar, aside, float left, and the side and the colors, same with the main and the footer. You could always come up here and adjust these yourself manually by typing in new numbers here. You could retype or type other properties in here or work through the CSS designer panel. I let Dreamweaver do a lot of this code writing just to save time, but once you get used to this, it might be faster if you just copy and paste some of the code and change some of the names, change some of the properties, change the ID. You can do all this on the code side by hand, just typing it out. Okay, good. Now we're going to add a few more properties, a few more CSS rules. And we're going to do this from the code side. I'm going to click on that body tag. I have my properties window open. If yours is not open, go to Windows Property. And Dreamweaver makes it easy to add some more CSS rules. Properties. Let's go to Page Properties here. And we can adjust some of the basic global CSS settings. Appearance CSS. I can change my font here. I can have a default font or choose one of these other fonts. That's going to be my default font for the page. Any text I type will be this font unless I overwrite it with another CSS rule. Now I don't want to get creative with this. This will be just a basic font. Remember, we have serif and sans serif. Sans serif does not have all the serifs or little feet, little additions at the top and bottom of the letters. Serifs do. For this, I'm going to go for, I think Gotham will be a good one. I could do my default size. I'll leave that the way it is for now. I could do my default text color. I think I want that to be black. I could do my default background color for my page. That would be for the body. And I'm going to do sort of a dark red for now. We can always change that later. If I had a default image ready to go, I could do that. We'll do that later also. Default margins. Now this is for the body, not for the container or any of the other sections. I'm going to leave that blank for now. Let's check out any of these other things we may want. Default link color, I could change that. I could change the default font or leave it the same as the page. Heading CSS. If I knew exactly what size I wanted my heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ahead of time, I could definitely change that now. I could also change the font. Now these are my headings. I think maybe I will change these to Gil Sand for now. Now this is going to affect all of these. I could change the color to black, I think, for now, and then we'll, if we want to, we can change those later. I could do some of these other adjustments here. Maybe I'll make them oblique, and I'll leave that the way it is. Okay, so we just changed a couple of the CSS basic, universal, or global CSS settings. They'll affect the whole page. I don't have to change them through that interface. I just wanted to show you Dreamweaver does give you that option. And it'll put them all, well, oh, here's what happened. We did it all on the HTML page. And I don't want those there. They could work there, but I want all my CSS in the same place. So what I can do is click to the left of that body tag, all the way down here to the end of that closing bracket. I don't want to get the styles tag, just the CSS code there. I can copy that, Command C, or cut it, Command X. Come back to go to my movies CSS, up to the top, to the right of that first line, hit enter, and paste everything above that container code. Let me make sure it's clicked on, pasted in there correctly. Yes, it did. Now I can go back to that source code, and no, it's not hurting anything, but I do not need this style tag in here anymore since there is no CSS styles in there. So that's one way to add code, is through the properties panel, but it puts it on our HTML file. We want it on that movie CSS, so we copy and paste it that way. And once you get used to it, you can always come in here and just type this stuff out yourself. Your default fonts, background colors for the body, and any of these other. This is a compound code here, different global settings for my text. Different colors. Container, header, and all those other ones that were already there. Let's go to the live view. Now I see that body background is changed. My font has changed, and the color is still the same, but I have defined that in the CSS. Make sure I save all. And now let's start to add some text here, or change some of this text. I can highlight this text here. Let's go to the source code, the code side, code view. And that is default text in my header. Well, let me delete that. I'm gonna hit enter just to give myself a little bit of space in here, and I'm gonna make that's in my header, so I want that to be H1 text. Shift bracket there, lowercase h1. Close that tag. It gives me the closing tag over here. I want to make sure I'm clicked in between there and type the title of my webpage website. I'm going to call this is my vintage movie genre website. So I'm going to say Be Very Afraid. A great classic slogan for some of these old movies. Now that's H1. So let's see how that displays in the live view. There we are. It's a lot bigger. It's an H1 size. It's the different font, the Gill Sans, and it's oblique or angled to the right. Let's go back to the code side. Let's click within my nav bar. There's my opening and closing nav bar. There's some default text there. I don't need that text. Let's delete that. Hit enter a couple times. Arrow back up to this line here. And let's add some paragraph text. Within that paragraph text, we're going to type in our buttons: home, space, about, space, tickets, space, and contact. We'll make those actual links and buttons in a little bit. Let's look in the live view. There we are. Code view. And that aside, here's what we're going to put here. Let's highlight that default text, delete it. I don't need that. Let's hit enter. Enter again, arrow up. For this, we're going to add a H2, lowercase h2. It'll complete the tag for us. Click within there. Yeah, I think I'll leave this all on the same line. And in there we'll say maybe top films, movies, or top movies, whatever's fine. Just arrow down. We're going to add the P tag here, a paragraph text, paragraph tag, and let's type in the name of our first movie. Mine's going to be It Came from Outer Space. I should have these written down somewhere. If not, you can refer back to your images. If you have not selected your movies or images yet, this is a great time to pause this video and select some image posters online. It Came from Outer Space. Another paragraph text here. Bud Abbott. And let's shorten that to Abbott and Costello. That's going to be the Meet Frankenstein one. Hit enter. Oh, that's one of the greatest movies ever. Watch it if you haven't already. Alright. Next, we'll call this one Them. That was the movie with the giant ants. I think it's based on a true story. Giant ants that used to eat people. Invaders from Mars. Okay, remember we can copy and paste code here also. The day the Earth stood still. No, that's the original one from the 50s, not the Keanu Reeves remake. No offense, Keanu, not a very good film of the Guanji. Once again, another true story of cowboys who discovered living dinosaurs and used them in a rodeo. I guess it could happen, I don't know. I'm just going to put some paragraph text in there. And I'm just going to call that, put a phone number there, contact us. 555-555-1212. Now in the footer you can put copyright information, you can put the whole contact address and stuff. The name of the person who makes a website, whatever you want to put in the footer is up to you. You could also repeat the navigation bar down there if you'd like. But we'll just put the simple phone number for now. Alright, let's look in the, after the side we have the main section. Now that's where the main content's going to go. And we'll just add a little bit of text there just so we can sort of get an idea of what it's going to look like. I'm going to do an H2 in there. And we're going to call this welcome. This will be like on our home page. And I'll make sure that's within the opening and closing main tag. I'm going to return that, just keep it a little more organized. I'm going to click on the next line. And we're going to have some H3 text heading 3, and we're going to make a little slogan there. Be, or maybe the, yeah, let's call that be very afraid. Or we could have a welcome message there. And hit enter. And let's do a P tag in there, paragraph text in there. And we're just going to say test, 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 just so I want to see what it looks like. We don't have to do this part here. I just want to see how it looks like before we start making our other pages. Let's go to the live view. Good. Not too bad. Alright, now we got some text laid out here. Now we can really start to adjust the look of our website, create our buttons, our links, and so forth. Let's do a compound CSS rule. I have a sort of a global H1 rule already created. So by default, if I used H1 anywhere, it'd be formatted the same. Well, I can make a H1 rule that just applies to H1 text in the header. So I'll click this here, which is H1 text in the header. Come over here to current, add a new selector. Now Dreamweaver is going to try to sense what I want, what type of selector I want, what I want to call it. And right now it's doing it sort of correctly. It's a compound CSS rule, which means it's a H1 text. It has several different parameters. It's H1 text in the header ID, in the container ID. Now everything pretty much in this website is in the container ID, so I don't need that rule. I do need the hashtag header and the H1 if I want to make a specific rule for this text. And since there's two parameters, that would be called a compound CSS rule. Now I can hit our selector. I can hit ID, make sure show set is off. Now I can change this H1 text so it's a little bit different than the default one. I could change the font if I want, but I like that font. I'm going to leave it. I could change the color. Let me change the color to like a nice toxic green. I could change my font family. I'm going to leave that. Font style, I'm going to leave that. I do want to change the font size. And I can measure that according to pixels. I could click and drag and resize that text. Not too bad. I could text align center. And it should center that within the header. And I don't want it so big that it shoots outside of the header, so be careful with that. I could do a text shadow. Now I would want to change the color on that guy. Probably a black or dark gray. I could blur it out a little. Really make that text pop. Good. So let's look at the CSS on that. Movies.css. Code view. Okay, I have my original H1 rule up here. I have an H1 where I can override the color. And now I have my compound header H1 text. It just applies to text in the header. You can see the color and font size and text shadow that was added. And I could manually change these through here or through the Dreamweaver interface over here. Let's do a couple more of these. In my sidebar, or a side or sidebar over here, I have some H2 text. In my CSS designer, I'm going to add a selector. Hashtag container, hashtag aside H2. Well, I don't need that container code because everything's in there already. So my compound rule will have two parameters. It's in the aside ID and it's in H2 text. Good. Hit enter. And I can adjust the color. Maybe I want it to be a nice green. I'm just doing some experimenting with color. We can come back and change these later. Once you get used to this, you'll have your color schemes ahead of time. You'll already know what colors to make. I'm going to leave the font family the same, the styles and everything. I will change the font size according to pixels. There we go. And I think I want the same drop shadow as this H1 text there. So I can go to my CSS, grab that. I can even do the text line center. I'll grab that and the text shadow, copy that, Command C, and I can come over here, hit enter, and paste it right in there. And if I copied all that code correctly, it should give me the shadow here. Good. Now let's adjust this H2 text here. Let's make another compound rule. Let's get rid of the hashtag container and that space after. So my new rule is going to be ID main H2, enter, font, or text. I can change the color. If I want the exact same color as the other text, I can click this eyedrop, grab that green there. Nice. I could add my drop shadow there, or maybe I'll do the copy and paste approach again. Movie CSS. And I should still have it copied if I remember correctly. Let me come back here to my main H2. Here we go. And well, maybe I want to repeat this font size here. Copy. And put that on my main H2. Oh, I think I want that a little bit bigger. Let's put that one on maybe 40. Good. I decided I do not want that centered. Let's make that left. And on my main, let's make that left also. So you can see there's several different ways in Dreamweaver to change the code. Nice. And next, H3, same thing. Make an overriding rule there. Oh, I'm sorry, let's make that up here in the selector. Get rid of that container. So it's ID main H3. And this one I'm going to do a slightly different color. Maybe a dark pink, violet. A little darker. Okay, I'm not going to do a drop shadow on that. Alright, there we go. And I think all the other text looks alright for now. We'll adjust the buttons in a little bit. Now one thing that sort of bothers me is it's a little bit too tight here. A little bit too tight to the side of the box. So let me click that welcome. That's my main H2. Let's go to the layout. Even though it's text, I can add some margin or padding to that. Let's add padding to the left and right. Let me add a padding of maybe 20 pixels for now. Moves it over a little bit. And I'm going to make sure I get that 20 pixels on the right just in case it goes all the way across. Let me click this H3. Same thing, I'm going to put some padding. Make sure I'm on H3 here. 20. So I want it to be aligned. And 20. And last but not least, I have my paragraph text here. It's in my main section. Let me add a new selector for that guy. Get rid of that hashtag container. So my main paragraph text. I like the way it is. I mean, I could make the text a little bit bigger, but I think it's fine for now. We'll see how it works. For the layout, I'm just going to add a margin. 20 and 20. Test, test, test. Let's just a little test text to see how it works. So it's looking a little bit better. Let's go to this text here. And I think I want to put a padding on that paragraph text in the aside. So I got my paragraph text on the aside. Add a new selector for that guy. Aside paragraph text. I don't have much room in there, so I'm gonna make a margin, but not that big. Hit enter. Layout margin. Let's try about 3 pixels. I just don't want it touching that side of that section there. And just give me a little space. And maybe a little bit more. Let's try 5. There we are. There we go. Gives you a little more space. Not quite so cramped. And the H2, same thing. Current, side H2, margin, left. Let's do 5 and 5. I could also center these if I want. You can do that if you want, but I think I'm going to keep it at where they are. Okay, so it's not too bad looking. Alright, now we still have those crazy colors in the background. Ooh, one more thing, let's come down here. Paragraph text in the footer. I could add a rule to the text, or since that's the only text coming there, I can add the rule to the footer. Click the footer rule here. Text. Align that center. And it should center that text. Alright. Now, the only thing that's starting to bug me is the background color, so I could go to my header, background, and change it to a more of a basic color here. Just make it a little more easy to look at for now. Same with the nav bar background. Aside, not the side P, the aside. There we are. Background. And something like this. And that main section here. Background. And make that almost appear right there. Footer, I could change that. No, you don't have to do that right now. I'm just showing you how I can quickly, with CSS, quickly in a few minutes change the whole look of your website. Let's save all. Save all to make sure every document is updated. And we'll stop this video here and get ready for the next one.